You're on the air with Florenza, your podcast destination for authentic conversations with a twist. So, grab your favorite drink, get comfy, and join me on this unique literary journey. Cheers! Myah Ariel returns with No Ordinary Love, a captivating celebrity romance that delves into the complexities of fame, personal growth, and unexpected love. The story follows Ella Simone, a Grammy-winning pop star, navigating a high-profile divorce from her unfaithful husband and music producer, Elliot Majors. Amidst the media frenzy, a chance encounter with NBL's most eligible player, Miles Westbrook, sparks a PR arrangement that blurs the lines between performance and genuine connection. As Ella strives to reclaim her independence and authenticity, she must decide whether to adhere to the scripted life she's known or embrace a love that offers true freedom. Ariel's narrative is enriched with musical references and heartfelt moments, offering readers a story that's both glamorous and deeply human. Please put your hands together to welcome Myah to the show. Thank you so much, Myah, for joining me for this episode of On the Air with Florenza. And I am so excited to talk to you about not one, but two of your titles. But before we dive in, as is my tradition, we are going to toast to a fantastic show. And so I have a little wine spritzer. And by wine spritzer, that means I just took all the leftover little corners of the bottle and poured them into a glass.
There we go. Whatever works. It's still 10 a.m. over here, so I just got my water.
Wonderful. Oh, you've got a little fancy tumbler.
Yeah.
And that's on the cover is, oh, that's a stand. Oh,
Stanley.
okay now. Tell me you got money without telling me you got
Oh,
money.
like a little purple, little purple.
Well, cheers.
Cheers.
Mm. So, oh,
I'm jealous, I'm jealous.
listen, it is 6 a.m. somewhere.
Yeah.
Um, so we had a chance to chat before we came on air about your newest book. And I gave your bio and some info on No Ordinary Love. But tell us a little bit about yourself, that some things that we may not necessarily know, but tell us a little bit about When I Think of You, because that was your debut novel,
Yeah.
correct? Oh,
Yes.
well, jump right in.
So it's funny when I think of you is a little bit, I like to say that as my debut, it is a book that is inspired by real life imagination and the movies. Because like my bio, the main character of When I Think of You is from Arkansas.
Okay.
Uh, she went to New York City for film school, like I did. I graduated from NYU Tisch, studied film. Kalia, like me, graduated, moved to Los Angeles to work in the movies, had all of these big dreams of becoming a movie producer. And her first job out in LA was a receptionist at a movie studio on a big studio lot. So those are all my experiences.
Thrown
Um,
into one.
all into one. So that's kind of my bio, but it's also the main character of my debut novel. Unlike Kalia, I did not fall in love with a big shot film director, work on his film, have a Hollywood scandal, all of these juicy things that we see in my debut novel. That did not happen in my real life. That's where the imagination sort of comes into that book. But that is my debut. That's my baby. I love that book so much. On April 16th, it will have been out for a year. And so if you have not picked that one up yet, I highly recommend it. It is a second chance romance. The characters fell in love in film school, then something happens and they broke apart. And 7 years later, they're out in LA and his career has taken off and hers has stalled, but they have the opportunity to work together again on the film of a lifetime. And they see, can we make this work this time? So that is a book that I love it. I love it.
Now, talk to us though. I know this was not, part of the original plan, but this is so good. Talk to us about that process of creating that story and then pitching it to
Yeah.
because it's so closely aligned with who you are. Did you feel like you were like doubly stressed because it's part of your real life, part fiction? What was that like? Or if there was any rejection in there, how did you feel getting any rejection to like your baby?
Yeah, I feel like because that story was so kind of tr intrinsic to my experience, it I was able to like the pitching of it, people really resonated with it because it
Mm.
felt like very authentic. However, it was also my first attempt at writing a book. So when it came to pitching agents, a lot of them connected with the hook and the pitch. But so I got a lot of requests when I was sending pitch letters to agents. I got a lot of requests for the full manuscript very quickly. But then I would send the full manuscript and I would get rejections or feedback that, maybe this isn't exactly where it needs to be because I'd never written a book before. And so the pacing was off in some areas and the character development. And so I really so the agent who I'm working with now, Kim Lionetti, she was one of those agents who really connected with the pitch letter, but had some really insightful feedback about how I could work on the pacing and the character development. And so I saw that she connected with my voice as a writer. She connected with Kalia, but there were some things I could improve. And so I really like latched onto her feedback and took some time to revise. And I wrote her back and said, would you look at this again? And thankfully she said, yeah, I'll take another look. And I think she expected me to get back to her in a year. I got back to her in, I think, 5 months
Oh,
with
wow.
totally revamped manuscript, and she offered representation based on the revisions. And I revised through a mentorship program, which no longer exists. It was the Diverse Voices Mentorship Program. I was paired with an author, Sammy Ellis, who helped me workshop the manuscript. And so, yeah, I mean, I think I was just, because it was my story, I was so dedicated to making it work. And I knew I was very much open to, I'm new to this, I'm new to writing, I really want to be good at it. And so I approached it like a student, and I kind of was a sponge.
That is so powerful what you just said in terms of staying teachable.
Yeah.
Far too often, when it is our first, right, as a
Yeah.
writer, and we have this first book baby, especially when we're coming in the way that you did without the background, right, and saying,
Yeah.
no, this is something that I want to pitch. Far too often, the author becomes married to the story as they originally wrote it without being open to any feedback. And
Yeah.
you were so open to say, no, the success of this story is more important than the
Yeah,
origin of this story. Do you
absolutely.
feel that that is what allowed you to step now into this new space for the book that we're talking about today, which is No Ordinary Love?
Absolutely. I mean, especially if you want to pursue a traditional publishing career where you are working with an editor in a partnership at a publishing house, because that's the name of the game. You have a deadline, you have a project, you're pitching projects and you're submitting chapters, you're getting notes on those chapters, and they're essentially approving them or not. And so it's a back and forth, and so you have to remain open to that feedback, and you're working with someone. And even now with my agent, I sent chapters in last week and got feedback today that I'm not sure this is striking the right chord. So she gave me very specific feedback again, and we're 3 years into a working relationship, and she's still giving me feedback, and I'm turning it around and getting it right the second time. And so it's definitely a part of that process. And so with my second book, No Ordinary Love, it was under contract. So it was just my editor that I was working with on that. But there's so many stages once you're under contract. You have a proposal that you submit, which is usually 3 to 5 chapters and a full synopsis of the book. They will approve or not approve it. And then once it's approved, you write the draft, and then you go through a developmental edit, which your editor will read the whole draft and give you these big picture notes.
Uh-huh.
Um, and sometimes it's like an email with a bunch of bullets. Sometimes it's a 9-page Word document with like scene notes. plot point notes, character development notes. What he did in chapter 5 doesn't make sense with what he does 5 chapters later. So that's developmental edits. Then there's a line edit. You might even have two developmental edits.
Right.
Then there's a line edit where things on the sentence level and the paragraph level they're making notes of. And then after that, of course, you have a copy edit and then a past pages. So there's so many, you're drilling down, 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 down. And so that process is very, it's a very kind of granular process that you kind of have to, get accustomed to in this industry.
How differently has the process been based on what you've experienced now that you are well seasoned and on your way to um, that day that you were like, okay, girl, we are going to write this story. I'm going
Yeah.
to be an author.
Yeah.
That experience versus now being seasoned.
Yeah.
What is those high three things that you're like, if I had known,
Yeah.
I either would have turned and run or I'm
Yeah.
glad that I learned it afterwards.
I think that you don't know what you don't know, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think, so if I, going back, so I started drafting when I think of you in early summer 2021, and I just had this like story, this urge to get this story on paper. And I didn't even know what it meant to be a working author. I knew that I had a story I wanted to tell, and I would love to see my book on shelves at Barnes and Noble. Like those were kind of the things that, wouldn't it be cool if this was a book that people
Uh-huh.
could and I didn't know what authors were paid. I didn't know, about festivals and, book signing. I didn't know any of that stuff. I didn't know about the politics, none of that. I just thought it would be cool to have a book that's out there. I didn't know
Uh-huh.
about none of that. All that comes later. And so in a sense, I was in that space of just like completely ignorant, but just
Uh-huh.
wanting a story told. Fast forward 4 years, and now it's a job.
Mm-hmm.
But at the core of it is it's still an artistic process.
Yeah.
And so right back then, I was really just writing for myself, and I was on my timeline, and I wanted to prove to myself that I could tell a story, that I could do this. And so there was a sense of freedom to it
Mm-hmm.
that it's not really there anymore. And
Once
so
you're on
I
that timeline, it completely changes, doesn't
a
it?
deadline, and then also at the same time reader
Yeah.
expectations, and once you have quote unquote fans,
Yeah.
and you have critics,
Yeah.
and you have, and so that all of those voices come into the room with you when you sit down to write. And then also the second book is a whole ordeal, because you've done the first book, you've gotten the big splashy book deal, and then you wonder, was that a fluke? Can I do
Yes.
this again? Do I even know how to write a book? Was because it was my story the first time, was
Mm-hmm.
it easier for me to write because I identified with that character? And now that I'm writing something that, it's funny. I wrote in my author's note how No Ordinary Love started out being, a totally different experience than mine, but life started to imitate art.
Uh-huh.
It ended up being closer to my own experience than I ever imagined that it would be. So I've ended up writing my experience kind of twice now. But at the same time, writing the second book is such a daunting task, because it's like, will people read this book and be like, oh gosh, I loved her first book, but I hate the second one?
Yeah.
So all of those external and internal voices start to kind of crowd around you and cloud that creative process. And then also, once you're a full-time author like I am now, it becomes that kind of imperative that this
Yes.
is my job.
It's your job. And it takes
Yeah.
on a whole different thing. I
Yeah.
interviewed Rami Ngami
Okay.
um a while back, and he said something so profound in reference to reviews.
Yeah.
And he said that reviews are what people write to individuals who are on the fence as to if they will purchase your books. He said the reviews were never intended for the creator, not the author.
Yeah.
He said people who are your fans and your followers who know you will purchase your works because they know your voice. And I thought that was so profound, and it just frees us as creators. We love those reviews and we look forward to hearing what the reader has to say about what we create. But at the end of the day, we're creating what we're passionate about, right? Those words are coming to us. Now,
Yeah.
talk to us about No Ordinary Love. And I do have a question I would love to lead in.
Yeah.
So, my question is, Ella's journey in No Ordinary Love is about reclaiming her independence, both personally and professionally. How did you balance writing about her vulnerability while making her powerful, self assured, and all of those things that make us love her? Now, you said that she's closely built on you. So, talk to us about that.
So it didn't start that way. I don't I mean I started okay, so I've this is something I've shared before. This book really was inspired by my obsession. Well, since I was a child, I've loved Mariah Carey.
Listen, my husband will beat you up to be her number one fan. So
Oh,
he's close by listening.
I love that there's a like a husband that loves Mariah Carey. Like you can see behind me, I have her
I'm
record.
looking. Yes.
So I come by it honest. I remember being like 5, 6, 7, 8 years old and just, dream lover, fantasy, always be my baby, all the way up to, I mean, even the Charm Bracelet album and Glitter, like even the stuff that people have derided, I'm the biggest fan of. Um, so that time period where Mariah, was getting out of her
Hmm.
controlling marriage with Tommy Mottola. I'm talking the late 90s when she came out with the Butterfly album, which was this metamorphosis, and she
Yes.
had this total career rebranding. And at the same time, she was having this sort of clandestine love affair with
Hmm.
Peter. And one of the songs from Butterfly is The Roof. And it talks about just her being enamored with this man who um just kind of awakened her, you kissed her sadness away in the rain on the roof, just like all these sort of beautiful lyrical, it's just such a sensual album of her kind of like sexual awakening, her feminine awakening, all these things that were repressed when she was.
Uh-huh.
So that song, I think I was just listening to the song in the car one night and I was like, this is a book, okay? This is a book. And I was thinking about living in Los Angeles, you're never too far removed from the entertainment industry.
Right.
And I'm always, and from my first book to now, I'm always thinking about particularly Black women in uh, high profile careers and how they sort of have to negotiate their own sense of self and their sense of identity and freedom and expression in these sort of high control exploitative industries, whether it's film or academia
Hmm.
or medicine or music. And so I just, around this song, I was picturing this woman who is a singer who has been in this controlling relationship, is trying to get out. And at the same time, she makes this vulnerable fledgling connection with this athlete. And that is where this book sort of was born. And so it just felt natural to have her be like, you have to be strong and you have to be inherently strong to survive that kind of environment, to survive that kind of relationship where you were 20 or 19 years old when you met this larger than life figure, Elliot Majors, and you were able to endure kind of being
Yes.
controlled and being betrayed and being led. But there also is a softer side. I remember times in my life and career when people would say, "You're so strong." And I even put that quote in the book from Tina Turner,
Yes.
I'm not strong because I want to be, it's just like
Yes.
circumstances in life have made me that way, but I would like to be soft. I would like to have a soft place to land. And so I think that's like a theme that sort of runs through my books is where I think particularly as Black women, we have this harder shell. We have
Yeah.
to. Life sort
Hmm.
of makes us that way, but we deserve to have this softness to us as well, and to have people recognize that sometimes we deserve to be treated as soft creatures too.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I love so Miles has a public playboy reputation, but
Yes.
readers quickly see that he is a deeply loyal and enduring man. What was your approach into shaping him into a love interest who feels both swoon worthy and emotionally complex?
So I needed Miles to be a foil to Elliot, first of all.
Uh-huh.
All of the ways that Elliot was emotionally unavailable, all the ways that he was this kind of showboat who, is just neglectful of Ella's needs and like wants, and it's all about him, it's all about me. And he is a genius, he is talented and he's surrounded by yes people. Miles in the same way is talented and but he also is someone who is in tune with, he has a high EQ, and he's someone who sees Ella as not like a conquest, but as sort of like a gem, something to be treasured and something to be treated well, and to be cherished. And I also feel that, Miles, through his relationship with his mother and sort of he could have grown up bitter about because of
Hmm.
that relationship, his mother
Hmm.
not able to be there for him. But because he was raised so well by his grandparents, he had an empathy and a protectiveness around his mother, who was a teen mom and suffered with addiction. And so that he's able to sort of apply that to Ella as well. Like he says to her, you've been so strong. I wish I could make things softer for you. And that in a sense becomes kind of his own self-detriment. He always wants to protect everyone else, that he's not protecting himself at
Yeah.
certain points. We see that play out in the book as well. So I wanted to give Miles some of those layers that, you get this image of, attractive bad boy athlete. And I wanted it to be the opposite on the end. Like the tabloids present him as one thing because he
Right.
did get a fight in the locker room. But when you peel back those layers, he's the opposite of what he's been portrayed to be.
The POV for No Ordinary Love is primarily from Ella's point of view. Was there a time in which you considered giving um, Miles more of a point of view, or was it to the point where no, this is the lane that I want to stay in with No Ordinary Love?
Yeah, so in both of my books, I write from the main character, both Kalia and Ella's point of view. And that's just sort of like a choice that I've made as an author to write single POV. With this book in particular, I chose to use the voice notes
Hmm.
that sort of like an epistolary, because I just love epistolary
Yes.
elements in romance, to sort of give us more of insight into Miles's experience. And also because we know just from a very practical standpoint, she's rehearsing for a tour. His season has started. They can't physically be in the same place because of
Correct.
their careers. And so, and they're in different time zones. So how do we allow them to be quote unquote together? How do we allow them to get to know each other when they can't physically be in the same place? And also, given that this is in Ella's perspective, how do we get more insight into what makes Miles tick? What, what inspires him, what worries him. And so that was kind of the device I used to get in his head, even though this story is from her perspective.
So much of the 80s, 90s music is throughout the book. Like you just get this feel, right? That you're
Yeah.
right smack in the middle of a song, and we discussed that.
Yes.
Other than Mariah Carey, whose music would you have if there was like a playlist for this book, or do you have a playlist already created for No Ordinary Love?
So yes, I do. I do have a playlist. I'm gonna post it at some point, but music is like you can see I have the records behind me. I have
Yes.
like three times the radio shelf in front of me. I have my grandfather's record vinyl collection. Grew up listening to my mother's music, my grandparents' music, and so music inspires me to write. Like I said, the Roof and Butterfly album inspired this whole. The title of the book is No Ordinary Love, which is a Sade song.
Uh-huh.
I so songs that would be on this album. I mentioned, Otis Redding in this, the Roberta Flack, like the Sunday after, the morning after, just the songs that you'd picture playing while you're cooking breakfast with the man that you love in the
Oh, you're
kitchen.
such a romantic
Yeah, super romantic. I am obsessed with Maxwell. Like Maxwell, the Black
girl.
Summer Night trilogy is like I mean, you
Just saying his name does it.
exactly. That's all you need to say, and you can just go from there. My first book, When I Think of You, is named after a Janet Jackson song. Um, I just got my Cowboy Carter tickets, so Beyonce is definitely on that. Some TLC, like anything from the 90s is definitely, especially 90s R&B. There's even a cameo from Joe in this
Yes.
book. They get to pick music during the music video shoot. So yeah, this book is also it's an ode to historic figures in baseball. We mentioned the Negro Leagues in the book, but it's also an ode to Black figures throughout the music industry who've really trailblazed. So yeah.
Has any of the artists that you feature in the books heard about either of the books and reached out to you?
No, but I would die. I would die. I would
Who
die.
would you love to hear from?
Oh, Mariah,
Of
I would hope
course.
that she would be flattered and not offended.
We'll tag her to this. We will
Yeah,
tag her to this. All right, Mariah, reach out.
yeah.
If No Ordinary Love was featured for a movie, other than yourself, because I know that's your background, who would you hope to play Ella?
Oh, it definitely would not be me. Okay, first I can't sing.
Oh,
I picture this would be like a modern bodyguard. Like this would be like a set piece for an actor who can sing
uh-huh.
with like there would be moments in the film where like the I have nothing moment
Yes.
where she's performing and it's like full costume and it would be totally so I see a Zendaya,
Oh, yes.
and for Miles, I see Michael B. Jordan.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course. Like, really. Yes. Good choice, girl. Good choice. Good choice. What's next for you in terms of books? I know that now this is your full-time gig, and how awesome is it that something that started out with a what if has become your is? And
Yeah.
that's so phenomenal, right? What's next for you?
Yeah, so this book comes out April 1st, and we've got all of the, things that come with promoting and, giving this book it's all of its fanfare with signings and festivals and things like that. And so that will run through the rest of this year. At the same time, I've already started writing the next book, which I can't really talk about, but I
Yeah.
will say that I'm really, really excited about this next project I'm working on. It's very different than the first two books that I've written. I also have some plans to potentially approach different genres and age categories.
Okay.
So maybe a little YA here, maybe a little, um, women's fiction. So yeah, I'm really excited about what the future looks like. And I have also, I would love, like, I see people comment and say, there are side characters from When I Think of You and No Ordinary Love that they
Would
would like.
love to see come together.
Yeah, and so there are, who knows what the future holds. So
Nice.
be very
And
vague.
And I listed in the notes where the readers are able to follow you, but I also have a question in reference to that stunning piece of art behind you. I have been staring at that
Oh, this one
for
up here.
the one. Yes, is that
Yeah.
wood? Is it leather? What is that?
So this picture with the two people up there.
No, the piece on the wall there. It looks like it's
Oh,
a
this right
yes.
here. That is macrame. So that is like
Oh, it's
it's like a fabric, yeah,
the way
string.
it's
Yeah.
love
Yeah.
that.
It's kind of like a waterfall.
That is beautiful. Now,
Yeah.
we have come to the part of our show
Uh-huh.
that I have rebranded 3 times. It used to be this or that, then it became one for the road, and now it is officially last call. All
Okay.
right. And so you are my first person, and
Hey, guinea
we're
pig.
gonna roll with this. We're gonna yes, drink some water because we're gonna roll with this. Essentially, it
Mhm.
is rapid fire questions that I am going to ask you. So don't put a lot of thought into it. Just
Okay.
boom, boom, boom.
Okay.
We're gonna get those ready.
Yes.
All right. What's the last book you read and loved?
Okay, Deep End by Ali Hazelwood. I finished it in one night,
Ooh,
audiobook,
very
last
nice.
week. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's your go-to comfort movie?
The Preacher's Wife with Denzel and Whitney.
I was going to say the original. Originally it was
Yes,
called The Deacon's Wife, and that
yes, I
is quite
do.
different than A
I
Preacher's
had
Wife.
to clarify the Whitney and Denzel version.
Yes, I'm
Yeah.
very impressed that you know that there was another version.
Well, I went to
Kudos,
film school, so
you
I
did.
you know my movies.
You did indeed. If you could have dinner with any three people, dead or alive, who would they be?
Michelle Obama, Meghan Markle, and Serena Williams.
Ooh, good choice. What's a song that instantly puts you in a good mood?
When I think of you, Janet Jackson.
That is a good song. Mine is, believe it or not, mine is Lose Yourself by Eminem.
Oh
What's
wow.
that
Okay.
song
Yeah.
just gets my juices flowing. I'm just like
Yes.
ready to conquer
I'm
the
like
world.
ready to get in the ring. Yeah.
Yes. Early bird or night owl?
Night owl. Yeah. I get my best writing done when the world is asleep and I can just
Yes.
stay up and yeah.
Yep, both. Describe yourself using three words only.
Um, I would say resilient, goofy, nerdy.
Nice combination. If you could live in any fictional world, where would it be?
Um, ooh, oh gosh. Okay, I'm supposed to do fast. Let's see. Fictional world. What? This isn't fast. So many things are coming to mind. I'm gonna say Bridgerton.
Okay. I have not jumped on board yet, but I've got a girlfriend in Hawaii and
Uh-huh.
they do full reenactments there.
Oh,
The
really?
costuming is insane.
I believe it. I mean, typically I would not pick that time period just because in history we know that people
Yes,
like we're not, but Bridgerton kind of flips it on its head and makes it, inclusive and diverse. So
yes,
in the Bridgerton world, I feel
yes,
like we would be living it up. So,
yes. We most certainly would. Your favorite snack while you are writing?
oh, something sweet. Like like a nice slice of cake.
Okay. What's your biggest pet peeve?
Um, okay, people who are arrogant with no reason to be. Like you think you know
Yes,
everything, but you actually don't. Like if you
yes,
do, then that's great. But if you
yes,
actually don't know what you're talking about, please sit down.
yes. You know what? Kudos to that. I love people who are confident,
Yes.
um, passionate,
Yes.
but yeah, arrogance, no go. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
What's your dream travel destination?
Oh, South America. So I've been once on when I was in college, went to Peru, but I would love to go back and visit some more of the countries in South America.
Nice. And I will actually be there coming up soon. And the last one for you, what's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
Um, it would be don't take criticism from someone you wouldn't seek advice from.
Love that. I have a saying very similar to
Uh-huh.
that. Yes, that's a really good one.
Right?
Well,
If I
thank
don't want to be like you, why would I take, like if I don't admire how you're doing your stuff, then why would
yes,
I take criticism?
yeah.
So,
Yeah, I have a saying that I said, why would you let someone tell you how to walk through your storm when they're too afraid to get wet in rain? Like,
right.
I mean,
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
no, can't do it.
Yeah.
Listen, Myah, this has been so much fun. I do hope with your super secret third project that you put on the air with Florenza as one of your virtual stops so that we can talk about that new project when the information is available.
Yes, I would love to. Thank you for having me. This is so fun.
It was a lot of fun. Thank you.
Thank you.
And this wraps up another episode of On the Air with Florenza. You may follow me on all social media platforms under Florenza Lee or via my website at florenza.org. Until next time, cheers.